All right, Shane, we are live.
All right. So let me ask you a quick question, Keith. You heard of Elon Musk?
I've heard of that knucklehead.
So he sent a tweet out saying, "I'm putting people on Mars," right?
Yeah.
And the first thing I was thinking of when I saw that is like, my God, could you imagine supporting time zones on Mars?
I can imagine it. It's really worked out really well. They go into it a little bit with the expanse.
Like, how does to all right? So you kind of out of sheer curiosity, how does that work in the expanse? Is it based like on a universal Earth time, or is it sort of like okay, like say Mars is 3 days ahead of Earth, Venus is 2 days behind Earth, or something like that? You know?
They explore that question and they relate it to a form of segregation because the colonies that spread it out from Earth were using all of Earth time systems. They're like, hey, we base our ages on Earth, we base our time based on Earth standards. So they explored what that could look like. So what typically happens is that what happened in the TV show and what happens now is that when you're on a particular planet or a particular system, you convert. So, for example, right now on Mars, a day on Mars is called a sol, right? Meaning SOL, meaning a cycle of a sun cycle on Mars, which is I think is slightly slower. I can't remember. It's not the same as Earth, but they call them sols. So you convert to Mars time. So there's a conversion factor. There's a formula right now that exists for using for converting from Earth time to Mars time.
So I mean, it's funny. Yeah, that's the kind of thing I wouldn't imagine it happening for another 100, 200 years after people leave the planet and really start colonizing things. Like that will take a lot of time to go between the idea that we Martians or we Venusians, as you so adequately want to be. We should focus on we don't want to use Earth time. We want to use the a universal time zone.
Yeah.
That's kind of I don't know. That's kind of I feel like that's going to take a little bit of time there. You know?
Yeah, we'll just kind of see where it works. But traditionally, is when doing work on said planet, let's just use Mars, they speak in Mars time.
Yeah. So speaking of Mars time, it reminds me. Hello, everybody, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of The Vanishing Point. My name is Shane Grant, and alongside me, as always, is Deigratia Daniels. What's good, D?
Hey, what's going on? I'm chilling. I'm having a good time. I'm getting this stream going. I got several streams going over here in the Discord. Mythos here with us. Hey, so I'm doing well.
Yeah, hey everybody. Thanks for inviting me. So we look forward to talking to you guys tonight. We have a interesting show for you tonight. We're just going to talk about a couple of different things, and I just a couple of different topics here. We're going to go back and forth and focus on kind of a wider net than we usually do. Last time we focused on basically space and the colonization of other worlds. What I wanted to focus on today was more of the virtualization of the world we all live in today. So my question to you, I'm going to pose this to the audience abroad and to Degrante before me. Degrante, did you use Google Lens back in the day?
Um, I experimented with it. I've tested things that were Google Lens like.
Oh, but you didn't use the tool itself, though.
I didn't get the cardboard box. Nah.
No, 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 not Google Cardboard, which was their VR solution. They had a Google Lens. Well, I mean, I think I'm sorry, Google Glasses. My
Oh,
bad.
okay. Okay, Google
Google
Glass.
Glasses.
Yeah, I tried it. I looked at it.
Did you have any thoughts about it at the time?
It was rudimentary. It was the beginnings of an overlay system of a heads up type display. It displayed basic data and basic information.
I mean, I remember looking at that thing and thinking to myself that it had a ways to go, for lack of a better word.
Your expectations were probably larger and greater than what the product actually did.
I mean, I feel like as though that's true to a lot of people's expectations, frankly, fam.
Right. So folks who live in sci-fi and fantasy, we expect all these things when we hear the words virtual reality and when we hear the words augmented reality, right? But as a engineer of these items for over 20 years now, I understand where the capabilities where the capabilities of the hardware, and I was not surprised or underwhelmed by Google Glass. I know exactly what it takes to make a HUD combiner. I've built and designed, I've installed a whole bunch of HUD combiners that do that in aircraft, right? We have a heads-up display. I know exactly what it takes to make that happen. I know how complex that one is, so I know how far Google Glass was going to go with their implementation.
I mean, they're not going to go anywhere. They like I use a phrase, ladies and gentlemen, and it's called Google is going to Google. Or Googleization. You can trademark that, figure that out. Actually talk to our good friends at Webster's and see if you can't get that in the dictionary. But I'll give you a definition right here and there. Googleization, or Google's going to Google, is the idea of this. Google or some big company will go out and spend a crap ton of money on some prototype. It will be some kind of resource where they spend a butt ton of money on a really cool prototype, but the prototype will be completely as fleshed out as it really needs to be effective, which is natural for a prototype. They might work on it for about a couple of years or so until eventually they will just kill it.
Yeah, and with that being
They'll
said, you know, you'll see these younger companies such as Google's and Apple's go out and spend a buttload of money when they can just go ask experts who've already built something like that, and we can tell them how it's going to turn out. I'm sitting here watching Oculus, Facebook, Apple build these systems, and I know exactly how things are going to turn out for them because I've already built systems like that, and I know where the markets are at. Shane, you've known me for a couple of years now. How long have I been saying that the consumer market isn't ready for this technology yet? It's just not. The development costs are too high. It takes too long, and there's not a lot of things to do in it. So what are companies doing? They're pivoting and targeting enterprise across the board. Right? I knew this from day one was going to happen. Right?
Well, I mean, that's it's the traditional. I call that the IBM approach there, fam. IBM. I think one of the things that keeps IBM alive today, frankly, is the fact that it still has a reputation for being a very solid, very strong system where people can don't have to where people know and rely on it. Shoot, the PC market as we know it today is the result of IBM. Is the result of IBM, that kind of focus on enterprise development kind of notion there, which is fine. I look at it with a sense of this, right? You're correct that there is a lot of people that, like, a lot of these goods cost way too much money for them to be efficient for the market. You've always said that, and I do agree with that notion to some extent. Like for the Google Glass, as an example that I mentioned before, that thing was like $1,500 out of the gate. That is $1,500. If I just want to repeat that, like, how many smartphones you could buy a god darn, like, and this is in 2014, 2015. You could buy a smartphone, probably an iPhone, I think an iPhone 6 or 7 at the time. You could buy it. Yeah, I think it was an iPhone 7. An iPhone 7 at the time for no, I'm sorry, an iPhone 6. You could buy an iPhone 6 for about what, probably $800 at that time. You could probably buy an iPhone 6 for $800 and then buy yourself an iPhone 4 or something like that for your kids for the same price that would take you to buy a Google Lens. There's no apps on the Google Lens. It has very little implementation. It has very little RAM. It relies entirely on, you speaking to it. It relies entirely on you speaking to it, which can be very bad when you're in a place where you can't really afford to talk. For example, let's say that you're at a on a crowded bus or on a something like that. When you're trying to check your freaking bank account, I mean, I will say, hey, Google Glass, my please sign into Bank of America, PIN number 3127. You know, that kind of thing. That's a it's an incredibly silly notion. I agree with you on that front. But I will say that I respect them for the effort, and other companies have found success appealing to the more consumer market. I would argue in recent years,
I'll say a niche consumer market, folks, the
still a
consumers
consumer market nonetheless.
who have cash to burn. Those are the
I
folks
mean,
who are playing with this stuff.
yeah, that's true, but I think that applies to a lot of technology when it initially comes out. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, look at radio when it came out I mean, radio is a notion has been around since the when they're in the 1900s. So I'll say the 19 anywhere between 1900 to 1910. Radio did exist, but it was a hobbyist thing. You would buy a radio kit and you would make little beeps and boops at your friend across the miles away. No one was playing music off of it. No one was doing no one was playing music off of it. No one was doing ads. No one was doing anything. In the 19 after World War I, you have a couple of people beginning to buy radios, like, and they're beginning to show off things like music and the like, playing bands, telling stories and that stuff on radio. By 1920, the cost of a radio was like the cost of a radio receiver, like just a standard radio with as many stations as they had, which was not a lot at that time, was about, I think $600, and that's in 1920 money. So that's the equivalent of about somewhere around $2,000, $3,000 today. That's I mean, I someone do an exchange rate on that for me, please. But $600 in 1920 is a crap ton of money today. It just straight up is.
Right. So I don't disagree with you. I think we're saying the same thing, right? There's
Yeah,
a
but
level of maturity that consumer hardware needs to be at for mass adoption. I'm just saying we're
yeah.
not there yet. Yeah,
I mean,
I'm
I'm just
not saying it's not coming. It's just today it's not there.
I mean, I'll just say that in by 19 like by 1920 like 1920 the radio cost $600. By 1924, damn near almost a million households had a radio in 1920. People were shelling out money for those radios. So I mean, partly, I mean, mind you, radio might be a bit of an extreme example, because it was a true game changer versus VR, which is still kind of versus VR or Google Lens and the like, which is still kind of still trying to find its niche, but
It's
that's the
consumer
ability
niche
of
because
like
it is
appealing
is
to a
it is
consumer
widely
market right there.
used and is widely used many places. So the consumer niche of it, there's people who sell this stuff and make a lot of money already using it for other applications.
I That is certainly true. That is certainly true. But I mean, I feel like as though we're, and I bring up Google Lens to say this, like, that was I remember looking that up not too long ago because it was from the 1970s, and Google Lens was
Google Glass.
sorry, Google. I keep saying Google Lens. Google
Yeah, I
Glass,
don't know
which
what you mean by Google Lens.
Google Lens actually is an app on the on their phone on your
Oh, okay.
phone, which matter of fact, I can talk about that in a second. But Google Glass was supposed to be a game changer. Nowadays, is a forgotten relic of Google's little back catalog. Something that they did once upon a time that they've honestly forgotten about, and they don't really go through here.
And that's what I'm
Yeah,
noticing about. So, getting some insight, talking with Microsoft engineers, talking with Google engineers, talking with Apple engineers, I am noticing a different mindset of the way they develop. Now, my development mentality is military based and is very regimented and is very structured. And after talking with a whole bunch of engineers, I've learned that the engineers are working on multiple things at a time, and they're not necessarily product focused. But like for example, may be working on a sensor, or someone owns a sensor, and their responsibility is to integrate this sensor into everything they can. They're not really focused or care about the final product. It's just like this thing that they manage or a service. They're like, hey, I got this service that runs in the background that handles whatever task. It's my job to integrate this service into as many things across the product line as I can. And it's very interesting to see that, and it helps me understand why things come and go so fast from these consumer electronic companies. It's really interesting to study and to see.
I also think I mean, I look at it in two ways. For consumer electronic companies, they are both they have a obligation to their shareholders, for lack of a better word.
Yes,
There's the expectation that if we donate, they expect to have a big dividend. They need to be making their profit margins,
absolutely.
and they understand they understand that the best way to get your profit margins up is to make new product, get people involved and interested in the new crap you're making. People buy in, and even if they only buy a little bit, it's still worthwhile. You're getting them into the ecosystem. Why does Apple produce a new iPhone every single year?
let me put your hip to the game. So what you're
Huh?
describing is not completely true with consumer electronics specifically with consumer electronics. Most consumer electronics are sold at a loss. At a loss. That's why I can say the VR AR market right now is not ready for consumers because all the units, every last one of them, are being sold at a loss. They don't make any companies money. Where the money is coming from is SaaS, software as a service, buying video games, buying content, providing accessories. That's where the money is at. Maintenance, fixing the thing. So that's where the money is coming from, and that's why I will continue to say they're not consumer ready until a company can sell it and make a profit on it, a substantial amount
So
of profit. Until that happens,
so
they won't be ready for consumer use.
I disagree with you on that one, Dave. Like
You can
there
we can Google it. Just look it up
no,
yourself.
no, 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 no. I agree with you. I see. You can Google it, yeah, but it depends. It depends on the hardware. You know, certain hardware, you're very correct, does not make a profit. Like I'll give you, if you want to talk about game consoles and systems, for example, that I'll give you an example to support your point. Back in the day, what they would do, like for the PlayStation 3 and 2, as a matter of fact, they were sold at a loss, straight up. Like Sony lost a little bit of money every single time they sold a PlayStation 2 or 3. But they made that money back in terms of the software sold. So in order to say, for example, let's say that you make a game, right? In order to have it produced on a Sony console, you had to put down 30% of the money goes to Sony. Just straight up. Like no matter how many units this game sells, 30% of that revenue is going to Sony just straight up. Plus, they get additional fees. They get additional fees and interest rates because they need to have a Sony stamp of approval. The more the game sells, the better it does. So going into it, like let's say for example, our game sells 1 million units and it makes $60 million in revenue. That means 30% of that is going straight to Sony, no matter what. But we're okay with that because it sold 1 million units, and Sony owns the biggest market share in the world when it comes to PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3. Well, particularly PlayStation 2. That's how Sony made their money. To go and make it even further is that Sony, when you buy a DVD, I mean, the PlayStation 2 was a cheap DVD player. So, and as time went along,
I
the
wouldn't call it
components
a cheap
used to
DVD
make it.
player, but it
I
did
mean, sorry, DVD
it
player.
allowed you not to have to buy a DVD player.
I mean, because it was a cheap DVD player. Yeah,
I wouldn't call it cheap because we're
my
talking three to
grandma.
five hundred dollars for that system when it was new.
Yeah, exactly. Like in 2001 or so. Yeah, like my grandma had a PlayStation 2 because it was just cheaper to buy a PlayStation 2 than it was to buy a DVD player. Is what it was. What it was. Like in 2001, at least,
Yep.
like going from there, they try they so in Sony being a media company with their own movies and whatnot, they benefit from that too. Oh yeah, go ahead and buy that DVD. You can also that also contributes to our home media outlet. You know, Sony had multiple kind of fingers in the pie, for lack of a better word. They did the same thing when they did the PlayStation 3 when they released Blu-ray. The for when it came out, the PlayStation 3 was a Blu-ray machine. You could play Blu-ray from the jump. They didn't anticipate the rise of things like Netflix and other streaming services to kind of cut into the home media market. But you would buy a PlayStation 3 because it was a cheap Blu-ray disc player. Again, they didn't anticipate the rise of Netflix and other streaming services, but it was still there. That's an example to your favor. But there were still other companies that were doing they were still selling hardware and making a profit from them. In that very same generation of the PlayStation 2, Nintendo was selling the GameCube, right? And the GameCube did not sell nearly as many systems. The PlayStation 2 sold out like 102, like over 120 million units, versus the GameCube only sold about I think 30 million units, a fourth of them. But Nintendo made sure that every GameCube was sold at a profit. That was their philosophy forever. Every time they sell a system, it is sold for a profit. So they were still making good money. Plus, they can offer a lower rate. Plus, they can offer a lower rate of licensing. So instead of like 30% with Nintendo, I'm sorry, 30% with Sony, it was like I think 15 or 20%. So it was cheaper to produce a game for GameCube than it was on Sony, even though they end up coming about the same.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with what you're saying. So
Yeah,
this is one of my points. So I
yeah,
see either little or no profit, right? So what happens? Some of these items may have a profit, but in order to make that profit, they have to move millions of units. Again, I don't disagree with anything you're saying, but we're talking like a return on investment at 0.1% versus a return on an investment of 12%, right? You're 100% correct. These consumer electronics are at the bottom of the return on investment list. There's one company that has circumvented that. Do you know who I'm going to say?
who are you gonna say, bud?
Do you know which company that is?
What say again?
I said there's one company, consumer electronic company, that has circumvented what I'm talking about. At least one. Do you know who I'm going to say?
No. What is it, bud?
Apple.
Well, hey, hang on a second. That's what I was using that was the one I was using at the very beginning
I,
as
I,
my example.
I don't. Okay, cool. If you say Apple, Apple is the exception. They manufacture their hardware and get a significant profit from their devices. But you can see how much more expensive Apple products are over the rest of the consumer electronics.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it goes back to part of it's like a company culture, I believe, and I think Apple has developed the perfect culture for Apple products. They're designed to be clean, sleek, easy to use and understand, no problems, concern. You get your Apple product, and you go. You don't have to think about it too hard. And they've also built up a fellowship, as it were. Like if you buy an iPhone, chances are you're going to buy a if you buy an iPhone, chances are you're going to go and you might buy a Mac. You might buy other products as well. You buy an iPhone 7, you're buying the iPhone 8. You're going to buy the iPhone 10. They've created a culture of constantly upgrading, moving up, using the newest, latest, greatest Apple product that they have available, both as a status symbol and as just the means of moving forward. That's how they can. That's how that's why they're constantly producing new product, because eventually people just stop. I mean, people will buy their iPhones, and then if they don't release the new iPhone soon, well, I guess they're not going to be getting a big fat check that come here. But I will say in a statement of agreement to you, that's not to say that they don't make money off of their services. Well, they
Yeah,
do.
they're making a lot of money. Apple is the one that's making money off of software and hardware. So
Mm,
that is the model to follow. Not everybody
yeah.
can do that, and they have figured out how to sell most of us a new phone every year. They were doing it for at least 10 years straight.
Well, I mean, they
It was
managed to
funny to
convince most
watch.
Americans. Like I said, it's a culture. Like,
Yeah.
let me ask you a question, fam. Do you are you a big sports guy, like football, basketball?
I watch. Yeah, absolutely. More so.
Mm.
Let's say I'm a big band nerd, so I watch marching bands and I follow
Ah,
marching bands.
yeah. So I was refer. So let me put it this right. My brother is a huge. He loves sports in general, like just in general, loves sports. And so whenever every year, no matter what, he will buy the newest the newest Madden, NFL, whatever have you that comes out, he will buy it. And when it really boils down to it, there is not really much improvement between between Madden 2012 versus Madden 2021 versus Madden 2020 versus Madden
Well,
2019. You know,
you don't buy Madden for the improvements. You need the latest roster.
we live in a world today where they can. Matter of fact, they do this during the season. They will send out patches to update your roster with the newest people in it.
Hey,
So if they can do
I'm
that,
not a Madden sports player, but I know back in the day you couldn't do that. So I haven't played in the modern times. It's like you
well, of
had to
course
buy
you
the
could.
new one to get the
Like
latest teams. Like there's
that.
talk about the next NCAA version, including HBCU bands. Right? This hasn't happened in HBCU teams. This hasn't happened in a while. So people are excited about the next version. Right? So
Well,
these
that
patches,
makes.
again, I'm no expert on it. You can patch it, but I don't know if they include all the functionality. And from what I understand, it's about the content, getting like the latest roster, the latest plays, the latest coaches, and the
What?
history. So, but I
D.
don't know much
Like
about it. So you're
D.
probably totally right on that.
D. Like I let me try this like this. I've played these games in 28, not even 2020, not even 2020. I played them in 2008, and they were updating the rosters.
Yep.
They were updating the rosters as people got injured, as things were going through, adding new plays, removing new plays, etc., etc. They were doing that since 2008, my man. It's been 13 years, and they still sell you a yearly product.
Yep.
Want to tell you why? And people still buy it.
Yep. They sure do.
People still buy it.
But Madden has a strong following. NCAA, NBA,
Well,
FIFA. Missing one.
like it doesn't like hockey, NHL.
Yeah,
They do it
college
for.
football. So you got NFL and college football.
I mean, they do it for every sports team. But you want to tell you why people still do that? My brother has a stack of games from 2012 all the way to 2021. A stack of football games that he can't sell because they're worthless. Because they're just because the people who run like GameStop and whatnot, they understand that the games are worthless. Like once it goes from 2021 to 2022, 2021 is worthless because no one wants that shit. I'm sorry, no one wants that stuff. That said, the reason why do people do that? And I can give you an answer, and it's the same reason why people buy the iPhone every single time, regardless of the new because they ain't buying it for the new because the camera has a new because the camera is slightly better, or because the touchscreen is slightly better, or because this phone has a higher refresh rate than their previous phone did. They're not doing. Some people do that, but not everybody. Why are people always doing this kind of thing? They're selling their old phones to get the new phones. They're trying to while they're doing it's the same principle between the football games and iPhones. It's because you've gotten used to doing that.
Yep.
I mean, it sounds trite. It sounds like well, duh, but I mean, like it really is true. People will become so accustomed to just doing that every single year, every single game that they don't even think about it. It's just like, it's like fish swim, birds fly, and tonight I'm going to spend $60, and today I'm going to spend $60 on the new Madden. They do. It's a yearly tradition. All their friends are going to be going on the new Madden, so they have to buy the new Madden. It's like it's something that you have to do. You just well, of course I have to go and buy the new Madden. I need to have the newest iPhone. in both industries, both Google and the sports industry rely on that. They need people to constantly go through and buy the newest system. They have to. Shoot, one of the biggest problems Apple is facing right now is that people are kind of getting, as phones get more and more expensive, they're thinking to themselves, well, do people are not upgrading as much or taking less or spending more time with the current system before they upgrade. So they think to themselves, "Oh, once I buy an iPhone, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to upgrade for another 2 or 3 years. I spent $1,000 on this. I'm going to wait." And Google cannot. I mean, sorry, not Google. Apple hates that. They want you to update. What's driving their sales right now is not people up. Is people updating their phones, but as time goes on, it's slowly, gradually going down. Not it's plateauing really. Versus the amount of new people who are coming into the market to buy a new iPhone is staying relatively steady. This translates to their sales not increasing at a year by year gain like they were doing in the 2010s, which is not good for their investors and for those people out there who have a their who want their dividends. So it becomes so now Google needs to. I'm sorry, not Google. Apple needs to figure out who do they go to next. That market practice that they've been doing for so long is slowly but surely beginning to fail because just by nature, people are just like, why do I need to upgrade? I don't need to upgrade right now. I'm
Yep.
sorry, I've gone on for I have ranted on that one. Regards, you have
No
a thought on
worries.
that, D?
Nah, Mythil, you got any comments or thoughts?
No, I'm just trying to grasp everything that you guys are talking. I don't know enough about the industry to make a comment.
I mean,
No
my
worries.
thoughts on it, bud, is just like and mind you, I am but a lowly software developer, and this is just me making casual observations here. Doing a little bit of research here and there because I have to keep an eye on the market, but just I will not speak with the I will not say that I am the authority of industry and business. So far be it for me to say maybe say something like that. But what's going on here is just that it's a tragedy that's not going to work very well. But I do agree with your notion, D, that it's one of the like a lot of companies are relying more and more on the idea of selling their crap at a loss. And I think this is actually beginning to infect this kind of philosophy is beginning to infect even more traditional companies as well. Well, for lack of a better word, traditional companies.
Yeah.
Like I mean, we mentioned him at the top of the show here, but you know our good friend Elon Musk, right?
Yep.
I mean, I look at Tesla stocks and they keep rising, and I think to myself, this guy Tesla has been around for going on 10 years now, give or take,
Right.
something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
How much money, like how many years has Tesla been profitable?
Not a lot.
Like I mean, this is an open question here.
No, I'm
Like,
letting you know. I don't think
feel
Tesla's
free to
been
answer,
profitable yet, or
huh?
if they have, it's just recent. The same with SpaceX. Neither one of those are making money. It's all investment.
You're fading
But
away on the mic there, D. What you said?
I said I don't think SpaceX or Tesla is profitable yet. Um, but when they
Oh,
do start making money, it's going to be rolling in. I'm looking it up. Tesla.
they were profitable last year, I
Yeah, it's
believe.
something recent. I mean they've been around, but it hasn't been their whole life.
Yeah, wow. Got profitable in 2020.
That's when they first
Yep.
became profitable. Yeah.
Yep. And
Yeah.
that's 1 year out of I want to say 10 at least, probably more than that. Like shoot, here's how I view Tesla. Right, Tesla does not make money. To go borrow from D's notion here. Tesla does not make money off the cars. They just straight up don't. What they make money off of is their batteries. They
Yep.
make money off of their batteries and their chargers. That's how they make their money.
Yep. Right here in the CNN business. Tesla posted its first full year of net income in 2020.
So it's been around since, and I'm looking this up right here, functionally since 2003. And this is the first year they really made a profit.
Almost 20 years. Yeah, absolutely. But you're beginning to touch on a point. It's not about the 1 year, 5 year, 10-year goal. The new players are planning out for 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50 years. So, all this stuff that Elon Musk is doing now, he may not be profitable for 20 or 30 years, but when he does, when it becomes start to become profitable, it's going to be a lot of money because the cost of what he's invested into Starship right now is somewhat high. But his future projections of the cost down the road to be able to do a moon launch for under $2 million, it's either 200 million, it's like 2 million, 200 million. When others are talking about 2 billion, it's like significantly much cheaper after he becomes, gets the manufacturing process down, where he's pumping stuff out by the millions and billions, right? That's his long term goal. Is to like, yeah, get all this investment, not make a profit now, but like I'm setting myself to be the king of profit in like 25 years.
Well, I mean, I was just gonna say the simple phrase is that you gotta make it that long,
And well,
like.
he's going to make it that long without a doubt.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, we'll see how the what happens as the time goes along here. But I suppose but that's a strategy I see a lot of other companies are beginning to employ as well. A strategy of we're not making profit right now, but we intend to make profit.
Yep.
Like Netflix, for example, actually doesn't make much of a profit themselves.
Yep.
They straight up don't. Matter of fact, I think for the last couple of years that they're making groundbreaking revenue. They're making a lot of money in terms of revenue, but they're not making a lot of money in terms of profit.
Yeah, they're making enough just to pay the bills, and that's why they call it the streaming war, because a lot of these, like a Disney Plus, can really put them out if Netflix ever stumbles, because Disney has so much cash and reserves, and they can sit around and take a uh, a
A
negative
loss.
profit year for a long time. As opposed to Netflix, they can if they come in with like 3 to 5 years of like not making profit or not being able to pay the bills, that's a wrap for them. They ain't got no
Now, what?
assets to sell. They ain't got no parks. They ain't got no other ways of making income. They only make income in one method: selling content to us, streaming content to
Well,
us. They don't even do advertising.
well, I mean, like, no, Netflix did some advertise. Like, I mean, not Netflix. I mean, I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you said there. I thought you meant like advertising themselves on like TV. No, 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 you're right. You're right. They don't do advertisements like that, which makes it a little bit harder for them to be. That's one of the reasons why they're beginning to slowly but surely inch up their costs.
Yeah,
They gotta
absolutely.
pay the bill somehow, right?
Absolutely. So I mean,
Like,
it's okay because they do provide a great service. I really appreciate the ad free environment, and
well,
I've done my own calculations about how much ads people are. Well, I've ran some numbers, and that's about where it should be at for Netflix. So that ad free environment versus YouTube. Oh my gosh, I used to be a huge YouTube proponent, but nowadays, I'm about over YouTube. They stuff an ad in everything. They spam you about use YouTube, sign up for YouTube. I get like 3 or 4 of those a day. I'm like, you're YouTube. Can't you remember my selection? I'm like, you're Google. I just told you 20 minutes ago I don't want this. Why are you asking me again?
because here's the bit, right? They don't give a like here's the bit, right? When it comes to ads on YouTube, it becomes absurd. So there's a couple of things going on in regards to ads on YouTube. Part of it is people are using ad block, things like that, where they straight up are not seeing the ads. They don't see the ads, no like revenue or something like that. I'm sure that there's a bunch of horse manure that goes into that, that they're kind of fudging some of those numbers, but there it goes. But YouTube, for lack of a better word, is a monopoly. Like in the streaming space, they are a monopoly into themselves.
Yep.
You get me? Like, where are you going to go if you want to watch videos, you know, like where are you gonna go?
Well, other
Like
things have started to
no no no
pop
no, no,
up.
no
So it's
like
still
what?
not as dominant as YouTube, but they slipped up and let Twitch get in there, right?
Oh yeah, Twitch is great for live streaming, but it's not competing with YouTube in the same way.
Absolutely, I agree with you, right? I don't disagree with you. So right, but when we were talking about King, and this is something YouTube had to pivot and catch up on. But there's some other things that are popping up that could potentially rival them. No one is near rivaling YouTube yet. Facebook is starting to get into that game, right? You got Facebook and all these other streaming platforms that are starting to pop up. And YouTube is popular, for us Westerners. There are other platforms out there around the world. I think China is probably the biggest thing because I can't remember because Google is sometimes okay with China, sometimes not okay with China. I'm not sure where they stand at today, but that Chinese market is very, very, very impactful and very influential. So whatever is going on in China probably can rival YouTube.
Well, I mean, when you have a middle class, like if you have 300 million people who are able to engage with an online service, the entire population of America, Frank, at this point right here, that gives you some kind of weight and clout in terms of that. And Google is going to play Google like Apple, like all these other big tech giants. They want to play nice with the Chinese government to make sure that they can do business. I mean, they will use the excuse that, oh, well, some service is better than no service, right? Which is, complete crap. It's more of a notion of, I mean, maybe I'm just being a cynic today, but there is a notion of, well, $5, like we may have to work on these restraints, but we're at the point now where we're making so much money out of China, we're willing to play ball with that kind of regards. But that's neither here nor there. Going to of course, like there are alternatives, but like there's alternatives here in America, for example. If you really want to, you can go to somewhere like Vimeo or Daily Motion, which still both of which are still around
Yep.
to watch your YouTube to watch a video but the key is a matter of consumer awareness and content. Like I remember I remember being younger watching Daily Motion just as much as I watched YouTube.
Yep. Same here.
Because they were like they were one or the other, and no one else knew what no one YouTube and Daily Motion were still very new in 2008 in terms of it. But fast forward to 2012, YouTube is pretty much ubiquitous. It's pretty much ubiquitous. People don't even think of Daily Motion. By 2021, Daily Motion, what is that? It has, was, and always will be YouTube as far as people are concerned.
Yeah.
But and that's their control. They can spam you with ads because where else are you going to go?
Yep.
You can go to Twitch. You could go to Twitch, but Twitch still has a reputation as being a gaming, as being a mostly gaming site. So if you want to watch say science videos or the like, you're not going to Twitch, and at least you don't think to go to Twitch. And B, known as a live streaming site. If you're trying to watch like older videos of like say people are like you don't want to watch a live stream, you want to watch more curated content, like people was more edited, more controlled, like a TV show versus a kind of a live stream, then you're not going to go to Twitch because those videos are just live streams at the
Yep.
moment. Where do you go? You go to YouTube,
Yep.
and guess what? YouTube's free. They like you may not like the ads, but you can skip them.
Yep.
And the ads are as irritating as they are. They are worse. YouTube has become worse than cable ever has been.
Absolutely. It
Because
has gotten as bad as cable, if not worse.
I consider it worse. Say what you want about cable. I could tell you as a kid, they would do a commercial break in 15-minute blocks. 12 to 15-minute block. So you would watch commercial, start of the show, 15 minutes, give or take. 10 to 15 minute commercial. Next 10 to 15 minutes. Next commercial that ends the show, go into the next show. That's how it worked. So you would have at least 10 to 15 minutes. And the way television shows are designed is that they were aware of how long it would take before the network will cut them for a commercial. So they knew, okay, we had 10 to 15 minutes before we need to stop for a commercial. So action, 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 action. Okay, cliffhanger, commercial. That's how it would work. Or they would generate episodes that were designed to be like 15 minutes long, to fit within the commercial framework. The way YouTube handles their content is they don't care how long the video is. Not anymore. One point, if a video was only like a minute, they wouldn't bother putting a commercial on it. Nowadays, after that crap, they will put a commercial on it. They will have commercials longer than the video that we're going to watch.
Yep.
It's absurd. But so they would put a commercial that is about, they'll put 15-second commercials at the very beginning of the video. The video will go on anywhere between 2 to 5 minutes. 2 to 5 minutes. If it's a 15-minute video, the commercial, you will wait 2 to 5 minutes before they will hit you with another commercial. Maybe 7. And the thing about YouTube videos is they're not designed with commercials in mind. They're not designed for a natural stopping point for a commercial break. So what happens is that you're watching your YouTube video, and as they're getting ready to say, "Oh yeah, now look at this cool. Hey, would you like a new lawnmower? Something like that,
Yep.
Mm. It's just yeah. I'm in rant mode. I apologize
No
here,
worries.
but we're here to talk about technology, not to talk about for me to rant about the evils of Google. So going into what I was actually trying to say there,
Mm-hmm.
what do you see Facebook? What do you think Facebook would need to do in order to really, and I mean really, compete with Google?
That's a tough question. They already compete. Can you rephrase it in a different notion?
I mean, I'll rephrase my rephrase in this rephrase. What do you mean? What do you mean they already compete?
They're both advertising companies at the fundamental.
Fair enough. Then okay, you got me on that. I mean, what does Facebook need to do to compete with YouTube? There you go. Is that a little bit more specific for you?
Oh, okay. They're doing it. So what they're doing is investing a lot into getting influencers to develop original content for Facebook. So they're spending millions of dollars to get people to watch stuff on Facebook. And I think Facebook has started to eat into a little bit of YouTube's lunch with all the video stuff we're seeing on Facebook with live streaming now on Facebook and these story things and having original content. I mean, you swipe left and you just get a whole stream of just live videos if you're on your phone, right? So they're actively engaged. They actively are working to increase the viewership of their content, live content and original content. I mean, they even have an
Mm-hmm.
app for the streaming devices. It's called Facebook Watch, I think it's called, where you just sit there and watch Facebook stuff on Facebook. Then
Mm-hmm.
over the last few years, there has been an explosion of video content on Facebook.
Well, that's interesting. I will prompt this. That does prompt me this question, Bud. Do you think that Facebook has a bit of a negative reputation with consumers nowadays, with all the privacy and whatnot going on? Do you think that has negatively impacted the adoption of Facebook video and the like?
Absolutely. I mean, you nailed it. Facebook has this negative perception in the community. Anytime Facebook's going to do something, people are going to like, oh, well, it's Facebook. What are they going to do with my data, right? Absolutely. So Facebook is going to have to do a lot to win over the people's trust. But a company that size, that large, with that much influence, it's hard for them to pivot and do anything that will appease everyone, right? You got government, you got various governments, you got various societies, various users, you got the leftists and the rightists and the Democrats and the Republicans. I mean, there's no way Facebook cannot annoy somebody trying to appease all those people.
I mean, that is certainly true. Like, how do you thread that needle
Yep.
is the key here. And I imagine YouTube gets away with a lot of things because they ostensibly don't pick sides. They don't go one way or the other.
I,
So we
I
don't
would
care
say
what you
that
put out.
I would say that was true pre-alphabet. Post-alphabet, all things that came out of there, it's coming out like the thing. Let me phrase it. Post-alphabet, the established entities that were there started to change. Google is different than what it was before
Uh,
alphabet. YouTube is
I mean,
different
that's certainly
than
true.
what it
That's
was
certainly
before
true.
alphabet, and we can feel the capitalism now in Google. We can feel the capitalism in YouTube now, and it wasn't there before that. And it's because Alphabet, the people at Google, wanted to do bigger and better things. So they're like, hey, we want to be more overarching. So let's build Alphabet. Let's go run that and hire people to do the corporate things for the other entities. That's exactly what we're feeling.
Mm. So you think? So do you feel like as though Google is beginning to take a bit of a black eye in the public sphere?
Absolutely.
So
Government has been going after them. They've been getting hit with sues and lawsuits. One of the biggest things that happened to YouTube was they got caught um, tracking data from minors. That was a big no-no. And it was
mm,
so bad, they created a new YouTube. That's how bad it was. It's called YouTube Kids. they they got in so much trouble, had to pay so much money. They're like, you know what? We got to make a whole new YouTube because we can't do that anymore.
now that actually prompts a question for me in regards to their YouTube Kids. And I think me and you discussed this privately at one point, but I wanted to kind of bring it up here in the podcast. The podcast. Like, how many people do you really think is because you're a parent, you've interacted with other parents. How many parents are really saying guiding their kids towards
Bruh, YouTube
YouTube
Kids,
Kids than regular YouTube?
YouTube Kids is on a whole nother level than YouTube. People on YouTube wish they could do what the kids are doing. It's
Well, no.
another level, bruh.
Well, what I'm talking about is not so much a matter of what the content in this regards, but rather usage. Or people like, are they guiding their kids to YouTube Kids rather than just regular old YouTube?
Absolutely, it's a separate app. I mean, they're technically disconnected from each other, and on
Mm-hmm.
kids' devices, absolutely, people parents are installing YouTube Kids and YouTube Kids because those kids have more time on their hands, and what they do is they have these videos on repeat. YouTube Kids videos numbers will smash any YouTube video. And we're talking like hundreds of millions of views slash billions of views, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's another
Well, I mean,
level, bro.
which pretty cool. I will note that, and this is something I've read, at least in terms regards to YouTube Kids, is that because because they're not getting the same kind of ad revenue that they are in regular YouTube. They're like
No, they
so
can't advertise on YouTube Kids. It can't do it.
yeah, no, exactly. So because they're not getting that same kind of advertisement, the people who produce content for YouTube Kids are getting far less money for their content, despite getting far more views.
I don't know
So
how
you're
that
correct.
works.
I mean,
I'm
like
I'm
if you're,
I'm currently testing it. I built a
mm,
YouTube Kids channel for my son. So I kind of want to see how that works because people are making money. I don't know how, but I'm testing it for myself. I will
so
let you know in about 2 years how it turned out.
we can talk about it in 2 years. But I'm thinking here's my theory of what's going on here, right? Like, because and someone we can test this out actually, and we can actually do an experiment on it. But I imagine a large amount of those videos for YouTube Kids are still available in regular old YouTube. They're just a
Absolutely,
little
that's
harder to
correct.
get. They're just like you can watch if you watch a kid like the YouTube Kid video, it's just on YouTube as well. The difference is that they're a age gating certain videos to prevent the kiddies from getting access to it, and B, are and B are just not doing as much advertising for those kids.
Right. YouTube videos have to be made. Sorry, YouTube Kids video have to be made in a certain way, and you have to affirm the content of it, and you have to go through the checklist of
Eh,
what's in the video and what it can't do. You gotta program all that into the upload when you're doing that, and you have to check, is it made for kids, and do all that stuff for it to be YouTube Kids. So it's a different process, and it will be available on YouTube. But what happens when you say your video is made for YouTube Kids, it could potentially show up on YouTube Kids. I've made videos for YouTube Kids, and I cannot find them when I search for them
well,
using the YouTube Kids app.
well, you also suffer from the you might be also suffering from the algorithm there, bud.
Right? No,
Your
I'm
thing is
literally
being
typing in the name of the video that I named it. Can't find it.
I mean, again, like my brother does a little bit of YouTube videos there, and like I try to search for them, and like and because I haven't favored it, it's easy for me to find them. But otherwise, they are buried, dude. You have to kind of go out of your way to look at it.
Right. Well, what it is,
Um,
it's not. You talking YouTube Kids?
or regular YouTube.
Right.
I'm
Now,
sorry.
regular YouTube, I can find the content, but what happens is because there's so many checks, it's like I can only search like my search results will only give me 30 videos. So absolutely yes to it being buried, but I only get to look at the top 30.
I mean, you can still search. You can still search it past the top 30. It's just
No, no, not you cannot on YouTube
and
Kids.
you
And I'm not
oh
talking YouTube. This is YouTube
oh
Kids. It's different.
oh. It's
YouTube
fascinating right
and
there.
YouTube Kids are two different products.
Mm, that stinks. I mean, that like, but it goes. Prompts my question here. Like, if you're, well, I look at it from two different directions here. If you're a kid, and let's say that you're a child, right, and the cost of you making a YouTube video is pretty cheap. You're just a kid with a camera, a mic, and some time on your hands.
Oh
Like, your
no,
your
no,
time is
don't
free.
get it twisted.
You,
Don't think about YouTube Kids as kids making content. It's people, adults making content for kids. So, for example, there's this family that just goes around and play with Thomas the Train. It's a family. It's adults, right? But their videos, all these, like my son just used to sit there and watch these 30-minute long videos of Thomas the Train, right? It's another video of these young ladies who go around and just, it's a mother and her two daughters. So it's not kids making content for kids. It's literally adults who are making this content, but it's geared for kids. Like
well, I mean,
Blippy.
nope, I do
See,
not.
hey, see that. Hey, you're not in the kids world, my brother.
I
Blippy is
mean,
like super popular.
I'm a 20-something-year-old man. I don't think they're. I mean, I don't keep an eye on the kids realm that hard.
Yeah, look at this
Like,
guy
what
right
if I
here.
talk to
This
you?
guy right
I
here.
talk to you to tell me what this would do with the
Can you
kids
see him?
nowadays, huh?
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Right, Blip. This dude dominates the kids. So like with Sesame Street and He-Man and Transformers, what and Barney was back in the day, is Blippy right now.
Okay, seems legit. I mean, I don't doubt you.
Yep.
It's just like I'm like, okay, it seems legit. I mean, fair
Yeah,
enough. I
let's
mean,
watch a
I
little
can't
bit of
get.
Blippy, and then let's
No,
wrap it
please
up with
no.
this.
I'm sure you're gonna about to summon your little son here too. Ooh, you're watching Blippi?
Yeah, he's starting to grow out of it, thankfully. Well, let's give you some audio. Let's see if you can hear that. Can you hear it?
Honestly, no. I mean, I'll take your word for it. I'm looking at this. This is very much a child friendly a bit here.
Yeah.
But it's very pause it for a second. Pause it. Like I want to go down. Something I want to say incredibly fascinating here. Three things I noticed just from a glance. Like
Go
go
ahead.
up, like go. I'm sorry. Go down a little bit. Go down a little bit. Right there. Right up a little more. There you go. Stop. Stop. Three things I noticed just from a casual glance. The first is that YouTube Kids does not allow you to have comments. They just don't.
Yep.
Which, fair enough. You don't want to have kids going around saying all sorts of bad things to each other.
Yep.
That's a no go. Uh, Two is the fact that this video has over 64 million views, which is very impressive, all things considered.
Hey,
Very
like I was
impressive.
telling you, bro, them YouTube Kid videos is on another level.
Well, of course, because I mean, a kid is the type of kids watch the same or not are willing to watch the same show more than once.
Over and over and over and over and over. Absolutely.
Yep. I mean, I as a kid would watch the same movie like dozens of times. I don't know why. I guess because it's just still new to me. Darn it. That's not the point though. Here's what I'm looking at. Look at the likes versus dislikes here.
Yep.
Like this likes versus dislikes is incredibly both high because I mean 64 million is a lot of people watching this naturally, but it's also like the amount of dislikes here are incredibly high is like just noticeably high to me. That's fascinating stuff right there. Fascinating.
So
And
if
I
you're not a
wonder.
kid, this is what happens. Adults see him as weird.
I mean, like I think that's true to a lot of kid shows. I
Well,
mean,
right,
I
exactly.
remember my
Adults
my my
adults
dad.
see him as weird and the way he does stuff. So as an adult looking at this adult, he was like, man, he's strange. He gets a lot of negative, he gets a lot of hate. But the kids love him because he's doing kid stuff.
Yeah, because I mean, the show is not for adults; it's for children.
Absolutely.
Naturally.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's true to. I think that's true to a lot of television shows. Like I know a lot of people. We talk to each other a lot, and we're both friends of the show. I mean, we're both fans of the show Steven Universe.
Yep.
Both of us really enjoy that show. I personally view it as comfort food. You enjoy the show for your reasons. I enjoy a show where it's not too where I don't have to where things kind of resolve themselves by talking. I live in a very complicated, boring, monstrous world where lots of violence, bloodshed, and like here. I like seeing people resolve their problems with their words. It makes me feel good sometimes. But one of the things a lot of people I've noticed, including my own friends, is that they really hate Steven
Yep.
Universe.
I've seen that.
Oh, there's no action, huh?
Yeah, I've seen that too.
Yeah, oh, there's no action. Every problem gets resolved by them just talking it to death, et cetera, et cetera. And I get that. I can see where they're coming from with there, but I don't need every episode to be I don't need every problem to be resolved by punching it. Can I agree with that there could be a little bit more action? Maybe, maybe not. But heck, I actually like Steven Universe for what it's trying to say and what it's trying to do.
Yep.
Is it a little too on the nose at times? Certainly, but I mean, it's still a fun and enjoyable show. That said, but it goes back to your notion here of Blippy. Sometimes people just cannot handle that kind of thing.
Yep. Yeah,
Like
one
people
of the
just do
texts
not
we
like this
follow
kind of.
who did Steven Universe reviews. So they got like a lot of negativity, a lot of negative votes. Let's see if anyone says anything bad.
Well, no, 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 no! Don't show that off here on the show. Don't show that off here on the show. No,
Oh,
no, no,
okay, okay,
no.
okay. True, true, true.
Like I don't need people say terrible things in the YouTube comment
Yep,
sections,
yep, yep.
and
You're right.
I really do not feel like having to. I really do not feel like I really do not feel like having to deal with that. And
Well,
nor do I want to have or the good people on our show have to see that kind of negative bull crap. People people say all sorts of and like quick rant. People say all sorts of crap when they're behind a screen.
yep,
You know, like people. It's like when they feel secure because oh you can't hit me about it. So what's we gonna do about it, fam?
that's true.
People feel safe when they're behind a weapon. It's the same thing. It's like what the heck, guys? What the heck? But I digress. The point of the matter is that this is very fascinating. But I wonder how much money are they really making? Like, if you're a guy making these TV shows on YouTube, because that's what they are, frankly, TV shows. How much money are you really making here? Like, he has 64 million views, which is a lot. But in an era where you can't advertise, in a realm where you can't advertise, where you're not making any revenue, you can't advertise to these kids. You can't do anything like that. how are you making your money?
Well,
Is it
hey, we
from
just watched this video, Shane. What was the first thing we saw? Watch. There are weeds around it. Look,
uh,
ad.
well,
It
well,
is
you're
there.
watching it.
He has
Well,
an
no,
ad on it.
well, well, here's the bit. Here's the bit. Right. Here's the bit. You're watching it from YouTube. I'm
I'm
talking about
watching it
from
on
YouTube
YouTube.
Kids. Huh?
Yep.
No, like go from it for YouTube Kids, for
I can't. I
example.
can't. You can't even run YouTube Kids on a computer. That's how secure it is.
So you're saying, so can you run YouTube Kids from a phone?
Yep. It has to be on a mobile device.
It prompts me. It goes back to my statement before. Like let me put I mean, most kids are probably going to watch it like on. There's so many smart devices nowadays. I'm sure that they can watch it on a smart TV or on a smartphone. But it also becomes a question of, are parents aware that it exists?
Absolutely.
And if
I
huh?
mean, it comes pre-installed on a lot of devices.
I mean, like I just bought a phone recently, and Lord knows I didn't see YouTube Kids.
We're not talking about things catered for adults. Children, like devices catered for children.
I mean, maybe. But I mean, I guess I look at it from the sense of like the average parent, right? You have been working in technology since literally before I was born. At least before I was like, you've been working in technology since I was young enough to be young enough to be out eligible for YouTube Kids myself. So the thought I think of when I observe this right here is I think of my own parents and like, would they know what's really going on here? My dad took a lot of time out to like actually watch shows with me to make sure they're good. But beyond that, he didn't know anything about. He didn't know anything about like internet, for example. Like I had to explain a lot of stuff to him. The only way he would know to look at something is unless I showed it off to him.
Yeah,
And
now
by the time I'm 10
parents
years
are
old,
aware of this stuff. I mean, because there are things that are targeted. So, for example, like Amazon has
yeah,
tablets built specifically for kids. So
yeah,
on that type of tablet, it's like what is it called? Let's see what it's called. Amazon.
but
What's the Amazon device?
probably Amazon Fire tablet.
Yeah,
And then
what
probably
Amazon tablet for kids. So it comes with a bunch of games, all this kid friendly stuff. See, Kyle has two of these. Trying to,
which is fine and fair enough
right?
for
See,
you.
I'm trying to find it. Here it is, right here.
No, I get you. I get your no. Oh yeah, for the audience, yeah, fair enough. But here's what I'm thinking about, right? Imagine if you are a parent, because I see this all
Well,
the
I am a
time,
parent.
huh? Because I see this with other parents. Like you are a guy who's aware of technology. You see all this other stuff, but imagine if you're a parent and you just want your kid wants to watch the YouTubes. You're not going to spend however much money for you might buy one tablet. If you know about the Amazon Fire tablet, you might buy
Shane,
one.
you're going down the wrong path because you're
Yeah,
imagining it. This tablet
but
costs $30.
uh, fair enough. That's actually right cheap. That's way cheaper than I thought it was going to be.
No, it's
But
$30. That's why that's why my mother, Kyle's grandmother, keeps sending him this stuff. I'm like, stop sending me this stuff. I don't like it.
yeah, he does. It
It's not
doesn't
good for him.
doesn't.
All he does is sit and watch it. So
Well, I mean,
where I'm going with it is that
yeah.
it is marketed and advertised very well, where to the point where my mother knows about it and is sending it out, and it's very
Mm.
affordable.
Which is interesting on that. Interesting. I was just thinking, like, because I know, Lord knows, I've seen people like they just give their kid their phone, and their
Yeah,
kid is not going to. They're not going to YouTube Kids. I tell you that much. They're going into regular.
aunties, uncles, brothers, sisters, older brothers, sisters, grandmas, mommy. They see this stuff. This stuff is the first thing that pops up on their Amazon page. If you have kids, the internet knows it, and you're being targeted with a whole bunch of things your kids want.
I mean, that's true. That's one of the perks of one of the joys of the new modern age. Like They know before your freaking in-laws do.
Yeah, they do know before we do. It's because they're tracking the things we're buying. Like so, before Kyle was born, they saw a change in our shift in items and started sending us advertisements that were baby related, but even before Kyle was here.
I mean, like I
So
said,
that's how much
these
the internet
these things are
has.
getting
They
incredibly
know our habits that well.
yeah, they're getting incredibly sophisticated.
They're
I'll say that
very,
much.
and I'm going to go into this one point because it's something that I talk about all the time, and then we'll shut it down. So each generation of transaction, we're adding an additional layer of someone gathering information on our buying habits. So let me talk to you through it. So our employer pays us money, right? So we no longer take that money directly from the employer and put that cash in our hand. We use a bank. That's the first entity that is collecting information on your buying habits. They sell that information, right? Layer one. So what has happened in the late 80s, 70s, 80s? The credit cards came out. Why? So they can collect information. So on top of your bank, now you have a credit card attached with it. You got the Visas, the American Expresses on top of that. Now you have a bank and a credit card company collecting information on your buying habits, and they're selling that information. Now, in the modern age, you now have what's it, Cash App, Venmo, right? On top of the credit card. So you have the bank, the credit cards use the bank, and then the mobile device payment system use the credit cards. So now you have three entities collecting information on your buying habits and selling your information. And here's the next one. So now, on top of that, you have POS systems. This is where the fintech are making their money, right? So now you have these point of sale systems starting to pop up. So now you have the mom and pop, the small third party entities. Now you have this POSs, point of sale systems, collecting information, tied to the cash apps, tied to the Apples, tied to the Googles, tied to the credit cards, tied to the bank. You see how many people are now involved in your sorry, see how many entities are now tracking your spending habits? It is exponentially complicated now. And that's why I use this point and I say, hey, you got to manage your cyber footprint. You're selling your information, your buying habits for convenience. Now, hey, some people may want to do that, but this is the price of having all that convenience. Is all these entities know your buying habits,
Hmm.
right? So, hey, I'll leave it out there. We'll end it there. Just food for thought. Uh,
So,
Mitchell, you want to wrap? You want to give us a final note or something to talk about?
No, I think this was really insightful, and looking into consumer behavior and how YouTube makes it money, and listening to all this was really fascinating for me, and honestly very new.
Well,
I
thank
hadn't
you
thought
so
about
much.
the differences between YouTube and YouTube Kids.
Mitchell, I will call you once we end the live stream after this. I know you want to talk.
Sure.
Okay. Shane, you want to wrap us up? Hold on, let me go take us back to home, the Atlanta chapter. And so, two things I want to talk about before we sign off. If you all enjoyed this conversation, please feel free to join us in the Discord. I put the information in the description of this particular posting, so you're more than welcome to join us on the Discord. And if you want to hear more about this, you want to follow this, please, subscribe to our social medias. I have the Singularity University Atlanta chapter page up here. You can see our chapter is the Atlanta chapter. You can find us here. And we have a Facebook page, the SingularityU Atlanta chapter Facebook page. You can sign up, subscribe to us there. I will be creating some new YouTube channels shortly to stream this too. So there will be a change to that soon to come. I'm going to streamline it and just stream it to one platform as opposed to the streaming to 4 or 5 different ones. Snooze. Other than that, yes, thank you. Thanks everyone for coming out. Subscribe, share the video, tell a friend about it. Come join us at the show. If you want to talk about it, we'd love to hear from you. We're just a couple of guys that just love to chit chat about random things. Shane, if you want to wrap it up for us and Go ahead and give the wrap up, whatever it is we do to
Hey,
wrap
do
up.
I need to? You seem like you covered everything right there, bud. I mean, I will ask the people. I will ask you this one last thing, D. I mean, where can these people find you?
Hey, they can find me on the social medias at Degratia, pretty much anything. Degratia Daniels on Twitter, Degratia Daniels on Facebook, Degratia the Techno Activist on Facebook, Degratia Daniels on LinkedIn, and anything else social media related. My name is will pop up pretty much on anything. Shane, how do we find you, buddy?
Right, so I don't. I mean, I don't have as much of a social media presence as you. I mean, I am not on every single platform known to man and monkey. But you can find me at Shane Grant on Facebook.com. You can also find me at Shane Grant on LinkedIn as well, except it's spelled without the E there. I realized the other day I actually still have a Google Plus account. Do you know? Remember that? Remember that?
Yep.
Google Plus. Google's attempt to have their own little social media server site,
Do
kind of
you
social
remember the
media
one
kind of
before
presence
Google
there.
Plus?
What was that?
Do you remember the one before Google Plus?
Oh, what was that?
Google
This had to be
Wave.
good. What the? What in the name of a 30-watt light bulb are you talking about, fam?
That Google Plus wasn't their first attempt.
Google's gonna Google. I honestly feel like if Google Plus could have they could have actually kept going. They could have worked it if they would have kept going with it. They had everyone is already linking all their accounts with Google anyway. I mean, I don't see why not. But
Yep.
that being said, though, ladies and gentlemen, you can find me at those media sites as well. I want to say to all of you, thank you so much for joining us. Mithril, thank you so much for joining us today for another show. Um, I want to say if you want to join him and want to ask us questions, comments, queries, want to throw rotten fruit at us or argue over the points we've made over the show tonight, please, you can contact us at any of the social media accounts that we've mentioned before, or you can join us on the SingularityU Atlanta chapter. We are funded and sponsored by SingularityU. Well, not really funded, frankly, but we work. We are closely related to the SingularityU Atlanta chapter. And so, any comments that you make in discussion groups, we will see and we will be able to respond to you there. Or we will also look at the discussion groups and maybe answer some of those questions in the next show. So from starting from me, Shane Grant, for Degratia Daniels, I want to say thank you guys all for joining us here in the Vanishing Point.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Everyone, have a good night. Bye.
Good night.
All
All
right.
right.
Stopping the stream. Stand by for a second as I stop everybody.